This is Casual Babble. Good morning, you beautiful individual. Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to the show. This is BC Babbles and you're enjoying Casual Babble, the Queen City's morning livecast show and podcast coming to you from Race City, USA. And before we hop into today, do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you're enjoying the show on YouTube. Hit the bell, that way you're always notified about future content on the channel. And if you're enjoying the show on Podbean, be sure to give us a follow and to also hop into the chat. Wherever you are, say hello, let us know where you're coming in from and what you're excited for about today, because today is Friday, right? So do that, and I hope you're doing really well today. I hope you're looking forward to Friday. We are here. The weekend is just around the corner, and I believe we have a holiday on Monday, so a good number of you should be taking the day off as well. To start off today, for our Monday discussion, and I've gone ahead and put this question into the chat, but allow me to elaborate on the question itself. So, and it's a random question, I'll grant it. But the question is, what kind of parking situation do you prefer at work? Now, hear me out. So, what I mean by this is that, do you prefer a parking situation where the place you work at has its own parking lot where you just go there, you park, and you're like 10 feet from the door, so all you have to do is get out of your car, go into the door, and then suddenly you're at your desk? Or, and again, hear me out, do you prefer if there's a nearby parking lot or deck or garage in which you get to then enjoy a bit of a walk into work? Now, I ask this because most of my jobs have been like the former, where the company has its own bit of property and it has its own parking lot. So I typically would go to work and I'd end up, just right there, right on top of the front door to the building. And, I wouldn't have to do much more than get out of the car and just go inside. But a recent position of mine actually had me working in the city in Charlotte in Uptown, and unlike the previous positions to that one, I had to find a parking garage with an available spot that I could, rent out monthly. And while I wasn't a huge fan about that particular aspect about the job, I will say that I did notice a bit of joy that I had in getting out of my car after finding a parking spot. That would mean that part of it wasn't always the greatest part, but, getting out of the car, getting out of the garage, walking up to the street, and just enjoying a little brisk walk down the sidewalk. And again, I'm in the city, so I'm enjoying this kind of industrial metropolitan views of the buildings around where I worked and seeing the people walk around. People either getting their coffee, people are jogging, getting some morning exercise, walking their dogs, or they meet up with their friends all the time when they park. So they already have kind of a little group going on, heading into the buildings. And of course, one of the better things about this for this job was that making my way to the building where I worked had a couple of pretty good coffee options. One of them was Waterbean. Very good if you've not tried Waterbean before. Really good specialty drinks for coffee. And then, of course, what was probably the better part was that right next door to where I worked, there was a Starbucks, and I'm not going to pass that up, right? But yeah, I found like this little bit of joy in walking around and just enjoying a little bit of outside life on my way into the workplace. I really found it kind of peaceful and, very kind of relaxing. I didn't have to immediately hop into the workplace and, immediately deal with whatever situation was awry, right? I got to walk a little bit, fresh air, get coffee. So there was pretty much a 0% chance most of the time that by the time I was actually in the office, I wasn't happy either because of the walk or the coffee, right? But yeah, let me know in the comments. I'm also going to post this question on social media. So if you're not following me on TikTok or Instagram, where I'm most active, check me out there. My usernames for all the social medias are BC Babbles. You can find me on TikTok or Instagram or Twitter or even Facebook, of course. But yeah, let me know in the comments what your thoughts are about that. Now, granted, in previous positions where the company did have its own, property, therefore its own parking lot, that obviously provided its own. I have so many explosions this morning in this conversation already because I decided to talk about parking. And of course, that did make it easier just to, get to work and not have to be concerned about not having a spot, right? Now, I think while we're on the topic of parking, if you've been following me for a while, then you might know that when I was at my previous job and I was working in the city, I decided, actually not even just that job, the job before that as well, I took it upon myself, because I felt called to do this, to call out every rude parker, like user of a parking garage that I came across, who just would park in the worst way possible. And there are several TikToks that are still on my channel about that. But yeah, let me talk to y'all real quick about you people who think that whatever problems you have at work should become other people's problems by how you park in a public garage, or if you forget how entitled you're not and do it anyway, right? I will happily include your vehicle and your tags, and if I'm lucky, I will include you. I think one of the craziest moments I saw when I was just getting out of my car was that there was someone behind me. I had already decided I was going to put them in the video for the TikTok, right? Because at this point, I had done like a dozen. And as I'm recording, this girl whips around the corner. And I swear to you not, I swear to God, I swear to you, that within the span of 5 seconds, whips around the corner, parks next to this guy that I'm already recording just as badly. Like, she gave no shits about it. Like, she did not care. And again, in the span of 5 seconds, car was off, car was locked, she was out of the car, she was walking towards the elevators. I'm like, are you okay? 2 vehicles this morning for the price of 1. Perfect. I cannot stand people who cannot show basic level courtesy and park like they are idiots. Like, again, I don't care what your problems are. Let me start off with I don't care. Not that I don't know, but I don't care. Because even if I knew, I don't care what your problems are that morning. To make that problem of yours everyone else's problem is not cute. By taking your frustration resulting from your problem and parking like an asshole, okay? Not about it whatsoever. That's rude. That's not cute. And when I tell you just the nonchalantness of the way that this person whipped around the corner, parked like that, and just left like they owned the lot. Like, when I tell you, I did not wish her well. Like, I know people say what you put out there comes back, but I fervently did not wish her well that day. And typically when I see people park like, and we're talking only 70 generously at the most, 70% of her vehicle was in what you would argue to be her parking spot. The other 30, probably more percent of her vehicle was in the next one. And it's moments like that where I'm like, you know what? I hope the one person that comes in after every other spot's been taken this morning has chosen petty for their flavor of the day, so that they will park next to you in such a vernacular that by the time you're done with work that day and you come back to your car, there is no way for you to get in, and you will have to wait for them to be done with their work day because you chose rude for your flavor. And unfortunately for you, again, that person chose petty. So that's what I wish in every situation. Let me know what one of your worst parking situations has ever been. And granted, thankfully, this parking garage that I had to use had multiple levels but here's the thing, like if you missed a spot on the first couple of levels, the ones that you didn't have access, like you had access to, first of all, you had to go up like 2 more floors, because every spot 2 floors above the first 2 floors, like floor 3 and 4, were reserved for a particular office building that I did not work in. And the only spots that were really available were the ones that were straight out like towards the back, and they were, I don't know, they had to have been like, they feel like 50% smaller, because like your margin of error for how aligned you can get your car in these spots is so minuscule. And while with the normal parking spots on the first 2 levels, I could be a little liberal with it, right? And I can not be perfect in my alignment and have maybe a little bit more room on the left or right side, and it's all good. And I still didn't have to like fold my side view mirrors in. With these spots, it's like you cannot leave your car in those spots without, like, first of all, you should not park in those spots if your vehicle cannot have their side view mirrors folded in, first and foremost. But yeah, so parking situations, they can drive you insane. That is absolutely for certain. And I think the one with the girl where I was already recording my TikTok for that rude parking style was the worst, I'm pretty sure. And I think, well, in that, you know what? I'm wrong. It was one of the worst like morning ones, but I had an afternoon one after work that was pretty bad too. The one time, thankfully, only one time, where I couldn't get into my car because someone had parked that close. Now, here's the other thing. And now, you know, it's one thing to be like someone who parks rude and like you deserve to have somebody else park in a more rude fashion to you. But if you're coming upon a situation where everyone else is already parked in a normal like courtesy, like they've put thought into parking and they've already been as like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like what's like the active form of the word courtesy? Courteous. If they've been as courteous as possible in how they parked, like they've all parked good, do not be the jerk who comes in and then parks all lopsided to where someone cannot get in their vehicle when you definitely had the room to do so. And I'll add this to it. If you are someone out here driving one of these massive trucks, whether it's a Ram, whether it's a, you know, anything like an F-150, something like that, you had better be a perfectionist when it comes to parking. Because not only are you already driving a compensation-sized vehicle, and you know what I mean by that, but it's obviously going to be a lot more difficult for you to maneuver inside a garage on top of being able to park correctly. So you're driving one of those massive, unnecessarily massive vehicles into a parking garage, because let's be honest, if it was necessary for the vehicle to be that size, you'd probably have a job where your vehicle was out doing stuff, not sitting in a garage for 9 hours. Don't play with me. But yeah, if you're parking one of those vehicles into a garage, you had better be a perfect parker. That's all I'm going to say. That is all I'm going to say. But anyway, so the situation where I could not get into my vehicle, oh my God, it drove me insane. Thankfully, like we had only just got out of work and I was able to text my friend Bree because she's tiny. I texted her, I was like, I need somebody tiny to come over here to either get into my driver's side or my passenger side and maneuver to the driver's side, turn my car on and just like move forward so that I can get in. And thankfully she was in a parking garage that was literally next door to mine, and it was actually connected to the building we worked in. So she was like right there, thankfully. She was able to walk over in like 3 minutes and help me out. I think that was I think it could have been a lot worse. So I think I'll say, that was maybe the second worst. And like, it would have been a lot worse if I couldn't get anyone to help me out and I had to wait. But granted, had I had to wait, somebody would have gotten an earful, hands down. And I think there was only one other time, it was a previous job from that one, where I actually had to spend time going through different offices in a building trying to find the jerk who parked unnecessarily close to my driver's side because I could not get in. And no one I worked with at that place was small enough really to get into my car and help me out. Man, you got to be courteous when you're out here parking in public. Otherwise, you just an asshole. That's really just how it is. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. Be courteous, especially, again, if you're in a garage. And again, if you're driving one of those compensation-sized vehicles. Don't pretend like you don't know what I mean by that. You know exactly what I mean. But yeah, I think a job's location can have a lot to do with how well we come into the office mentally, right? Again, like I said earlier on, the fact that I got to enjoy a little bit of a walk, a little bit of a brisk breeze, seeing people in their morning routines, having my coffee options going in, getting to enjoy some sights, some of those metropolitan industrial views of all the buildings. And Charlotte has beautiful buildings. If you've never been to Charlotte, I highly suggest swinging by for vacation. Plenty of stuff's around here. That we got a lot of arts here. The Blumenthal Performing Arts Center. If you love your ballets, and different classical performances. Really cool stuff here and really good food as well. But beautiful buildings here in the Queen City. I mean, the skyline is gorgeous. If you've never seen the Queen City skyline, you are missing out. It's really beautiful. And again, if you're here on a business trip and you have like a hotel in the city, like beautiful sights, like the colors are beautiful. Plus, of course, we have like the colors here going into theme mode all the time for different holidays, for different monthly celebrations. So yeah, definitely pretty cool. But yeah, I think the location of our work can have a really strong impact on how mentally and emotionally available and prepared we can be for the workday. And just like if you can come into work more open for the day's operations, if your location affects that, I think it's really good. Well, I'll say this, if the location of your work affects that in a positive manner, then I think it's pretty cool. But obviously sometimes it can be more in a negative light. But yeah, let's contemplate that, right? Location can have a lot to do with your status, your mental status going into the office that day, which I think is pretty cool. And I do hope for everyone, if you're not in a location that does benefit you in that way yet, I hope that you are able to come across that soon in your career, because I think we should all be able to enjoy a moment or some innate element of our job locations that help bring us to a more open mindset and a more balanced emotional status, right? Because I think that's really important going into any workday. Friday for sure. Partially because Friday most of us are already checking into weekend mode, so we're already coming in not as available mentally because weekend. But especially days like Monday and any day between Monday and Friday, because Monday you're hopping back out of weekend mode into work mode, and then Tuesday through Thursday can really just be like work is hammering you and you're trying to just keep everything balanced and whatnot and trying to, I guess, mentally survive. So if there are any innate elements of your current job, your current position, like location that can work for you, so be it. I'm all for that. I will say, ironically, while I like being able to park closely to where I work, there were a lot of my coworkers who actually parked in these lots that were a couple of blocks away from the building that we worked in. And I won't lie, as much as I enjoyed driving past them so that I can get to my parking garage, at the same time, I was like, you know what? This walk that they're doing, like 2 to 3 blocks in the morning, must be nice. They look pretty calm. They look like they're enjoying it to a degree. I'm sure like plenty of them are like, you know what? I hate this walk. I hate this walk. It shouldn't take this long to get to work. But me personally, looking at like watching people like walk to work in that distance, and this might sound kind of weird, I was like, wow, there must be like a level of like, okay, let me get my body active and like let me enjoy this distance between my car and work. And again, try to allow yourself to be as mentally prepared for work as possible, right? So one of the things I wanted to touch base on today is acknowledging whether or not your work environment has a subculture. Now, a subculture can be a lot of different things, or at least it can come about for a lot of different reasons. Let me say that. So what is a subculture? Really, a subculture in your office space is honestly any kind of smaller collective of people who have connected separate from the main group of people for some number of reasons. And that can be due to a number of different things. Those can occur as a result of age. Those can come about as a result of different things like faiths and spiritualities, as a result of ethnic backgrounds, or like when people were hired. Some people, like some places, a lot of places, hire people kind of in batches, and as a result, people who were hired on at the same time might happen to stick together more because they simply know each other better, and different things like that. Like for instance, one of my previous jobs, trying to make sure I got everything open here. One of my previous jobs, people were hired in batches, but also after a month of training or so, what we actually did was from there, we were all separated out into other sections of the floor. So I worked in a setup where we were all in this kind of main floor. There were 2 floors to the company, but we were all on one floor, and the floor itself had a lot of different sub teams and sub sections because you had different departments of the company on the same floor. So you had creative, which could have been anyone from the people who did copywriting to the people who designed websites, yada, yada, yada. You had people who specialized in SEO, and then another section of people who specialized in quality assurance. And then you had people who oversaw marketing coordination or marketing campaigns on the other end and whatnot. And yeah, as a result of that, so a lot of times subcultures can occur based on the company's structure. And so how do we navigate those things, right? How do we go about do we go about trying to avoid subcultures, or do we try to engross ourselves in subcultures? What do we think works better for us? So honestly, in my experience, I haven't really found too many subcultures that I'm like, ooh, I should avoid this. And honestly, there were plenty of times where I didn't realize a subculture really even existed until I could not deny its existence any longer. So for instance, one of my previous jobs was, I was overseeing communications for a couple of big clients of our company, and I didn't realize a particular subculture existed within my coworkers. And it's because, and this is another way in which a subculture can occur. So let's say we had someone in the office who was an overseer of office operations. We'll call that person that. And while this person was present in the office space, like you wouldn't, like the personality of this individual was like if you pay attention, you're like, I'm sure this person's personality probably rubs 1 or 2 people kind of the wrong way. And then the second that this person's on vacation or just isn't in for the day, this subculture of individuals who are not a huge fan of her comes full front. Like when I tell you the day that I came in and this individual was not at work, and how everyone was, when I came into the office, was talking about this individual and not in a positive manner, I was like, wow. And I realized then that subcultures can occur as a result of a collective like or dislike of a singular individual or even a group of individuals, right? Which I found pretty surprising, kind of. And granted, I've been in previous work environments to that one where pretty much everyone did not like a singular individual. But at the time, I didn't realize to notice that as a subculture. It was just like normal, which, probably says plenty about that particular environment or the particular individual that we collectively were not a fan of. But yeah, so like I would say, really depending on if you come across a subculture like that, where the subculture has occurred as a result of a collective like or dislike of an individual, I'd say first, assess how far you'd want to be involved in this subcultural mutual collective dislike of a person. And sometimes it's due to an individual who's misunderstood, and maybe they are attempting to do the right thing at work, but they don't execute it in the most well-received way, which is, happens all the time. Or the individual may just really suck as a person, and the collective mutual dislike of this person is very understandable. But always decide for yourself how into those things you want to get. Like, I know I support office gossip here. I support, information that leads to a conversation. I fully support here. And we know that, if people didn't love gossip the way that people love gossip and love being involved in those subcultures, then shows like Bridgerton, Gossip Girl, things like that would not be as popular as they are. So let's be honest about that first off. But yeah, decide. I would say firstly, if you can get a gauge of how, not liberal, but how active these individuals are in that collective mutual dislike. And see, it's like, I understand wanting to get involved for the pure conversational aspect, because why not? And I think it can be helpful to understand the quote unquote underbelly of your work environment to better navigate it. But, in association, you can be found guilty of a group mishap, especially even if you weren't involved with the group when that mishap occurs, right? So just keep that in mind. But other subcultures, again, can exist simply because of a company structure, right? So again, where I worked previously, we had one huge floor. We had 2 floors, but the floor I was on had so many different sub teams because of the different departments, operations of the company. And so as a result, those teams tended to become their own little subcultures and it's typically because in each of those departments, you have a collective POV, right? Point of view of the company. So let's say like the people in SEO would have a particular POV of operations that would differ from the web designers, or the web designers would have a particular POV that differed from the people who coordinated the marketing campaigns, and they would be different from the people who wrote copy and this and this and that. So that tends to result in its own subculture as well. Additionally, on the side of the individuals who oversaw marketing campaigns, even that sub-team was further subdivided into other teams. And there was like what was really cool, like an active competitive element to the floor, which was great because it kept people invigorated to do their jobs, which was pretty cool. But yeah, as a result of that, even the sub-teams of the sub-teams were subcultures. And they were really, really collectively involved with each other as teammates, and always conversed with each other, going to lunch. Barely ever really broke out of the teams because I was there for a shorter amount of time. And I'm still very connected to my team that I was with when I was onboarded. We tended to, as a training team, stuck pretty close together as well. But I was also always with my other team for lunch, so I was actually kind of like half and half my time. But essentially, subcultures happen a lot, right? So be aware of that going into an environment, that it's not all just the surface level team, right? There's going to be one or two subcultures, maybe even many subcultures, especially when it comes to a larger team size overall. If you're going into a large company that has huge departments, be prepared for subcultures. And it's really not too, which is really bad to say, but it's really not too different from the cliques at school, at high school, really. Now I'm not going to hop into like a whole Mean Girls breakdown of like the different cliques of a high school, but it's honestly not too different from that. And really, cliques in high school are also just subcultures. It's just how things work. You find people of common interests who decide to link based on those common interests, and those common interests kind of, to a degree, become their collective identity. And it works the same way at an office. Just be prepared for that, is what I'm trying to say. Real quick, I want to take a moment to let you know about a couple of really cool things. So one, just in case you're wondering, I don't get my submissions for this show from nowhere. They come from real life people, real life young professionals, entrepreneurs, trailblazers, just like you. So if you ever wondered about how you could submit your questions, your stories, or your office gossip for conversation and discussion on the show, there are two ways to do just that. One, you can head on over to casualbabble.com. There is a page called Submit Your Story. Hand it in there. Additionally, we have our own Reddit community called Talk Office Gossip. You can submit your stories there, and I am placing both of these in the comment section. So be sure to swing over to the chats if you're enjoying the show on YouTube or on Podbean, and check out those links there for your enjoyment. Additionally, if you are looking for a way to both support the community, become a true part of the babbling community, and to be acknowledged as an awesome supporter, as well as gain early access to traditional content on my channel, BC Babbles, as well as access to custom content, you can check out my Patreon and my Buy Me a Coffee links. I'm also placing those in the description, the chat boxes. So be sure to head on over to chat if you're not in the chat yet, and take a look. Let's see here, and those are in. So check them out whenever you can, and become a part of the community. We are very open here, and I love adding new people to the show. I love talking to people. And again, if otherwise, feel free to share the show as much as you can, as well as hop on and connect with me on socials. I am most active on TikTok. And again, my usernames for all of my social media accounts are BC Babbles, and you can find the most active ones listed on the side of my website, casualbabble.com. And halfway through this episode today, let's go ahead and move into some submissions I'm going to share with today. Let's see here. Head on over. Let's see. Submissions for today. See here. Now, I did see one last night that I'm going to go ahead and respond to, because I thought it was a pretty interesting question. So someone asked yesterday, can you be paid for holidays that you haven't used? So to address that question, I'm going to say it really depends on your contract and your agreement with your company, right? So a previous position of mine, it was in my contract that any unused PTO time, and now that differs nowadays from holiday time, but any unused PTO time that I had by the time I left the company would be reimbursed to me upon leaving the company. And I thankfully I had over a week's worth of unused PTO time still available. So when I left the company, that was all reimbursed to me and included in my final paycheck. So that was nice. So I definitely say to be sure of that, discuss either with your immediate supervisor or your closest HR rep just to inquire about that. Nowadays, I don't think it was always this way, but definitely nowadays, personal holiday, bereavement, and PTO are considered different things. I've only seen PTO as offered up as something that can be reimbursed if not used by an employee. So I would definitely check again with your supervisor, or if you have like a close coworker that you like to talk things over with who's very knowledgeable about this, I would definitely just inquire about that. And that way you know. But yeah, or otherwise, if you have a copy of your contract, that should help you out as well. Let's see here. This individual asks, I'm going to move my camera a little bit because it's driving me crazy. Let's do that. Oop, there we go. We're alive. There we go. I don't like the angle. I should have thought of this before the show. I'm not going to lie. So, 1 second. Okay. Let's see. The question here is it okay to change my professional title before I get a job? Hi, I'm currently a college student, but I have work experience as an IT specialist or support from previous opportunities. I put my professional title as it is in my resume. Not so recently, I want to become a data analyst or data engineer whilst doing some project of it to put in my resume. If I change my title to data analyst or data engineer, but have no experience in that, is it okay, or stay with the IT specialist or support and change it after landing a job that I want? Honestly, well, here's what you got to prepare for. So anyone, nowadays with Zoom interviews or really even in-person interviews, based on whatever official title you give yourself, people are going to inquire about that. So be prepared for that. If you have experience doing any data analysis or work like that, then, and you can back it up with that and find a way to even feed that into your IT specialist, that's totally one way to go about it. But be prepared that whatever title you have, if you go for like a title, that will definitely be something that they inquire about. You don't have to put like a singular, super simple title as well. Let me try to pull up like my resume. I know my resume's got some kind of multi-layered title that gives me plenty of room to kind of operate within when it comes to discussing new opportunities with people who are interviewing me. You can also, instead of saying or just only putting a title to your resume, I would say you can also put a description or a kind of a statement in there as well. So let's say mine says digital media production and marketing. It doesn't even say a specific position. So I chose to go for the areas that I operate in as opposed to giving a specific title, because that gives me a lot of room to work with. But I also put like kind of a mission statement in my resume as well, which mentions my some of my background, my degree, and that allows me to, again, operate in a pretty broad area. So I'd say go for that. Either find a way to feed the two into each other, or even add a more broader title that can encompass the both of those, and work with that would be what I say. So let's see here. Next submission says, status now says interview, but no one has reached out. Should I email HR? I've applied for a job with a provincial government. My status changed from screening to assignment after they had reached out by phone and gave me to an assignment. I submitted it on Monday and checked the status in the online application portal, and it now says interview, but no one has reached out by email or phone to set something up. Should I contact HR, or will I be a pest? So I actually had this happen to me a few years back when I was looking for my first real on-air position in radio. I had applied, I think this was actually my position that I had applied to in Anchorage, Alaska. Y'all, when I was telling you, I know if you've been with me on the show, I've talked about how horrible my first job was in radio because it wasn't anything I wanted to do. When I tell you I applied to jobs that geographically spanned from Anchorage, Alaska to the Cayman Islands, that is not an over-dramatization. That is literally the geographical range I targeted for a new job. Anyway, so I'm pretty sure it was the position I was going for in Anchorage, Alaska. And I also noticed they use Workday for their job applications. And I noticed as well that it was set to interview as opposed to under review or in progress, something like that. And I noticed it had been changed to that, I think a week or so after the fact. And I went ahead and just gave them a quick call or reached out to somebody over there and inquired, like, told them, hey, I noticed this status has changed, but no one has reached out. I just wanted to check and see if for some reason you were able to get a hold of me, something like that. And they're like, oh yeah, we were totally, we're running a little bit behind, but we are definitely looking to get a hold of you here soon. Since I have you, what times would you be available for an interview? So I'd say, like, gauge how long it's been in that status first. Like, if it was just the other day, I'd say give them a few other days. If it was like on a Thursday, just give them the weekend to reach out to you. And if it's been a week or so since being set to interview, and again, and this might be industry different, certain industries, might just take forever to move on to the next step. But I'd say giving that status change a good week or so before reaching out to confirm, because sometimes it could be a mistake. Hopefully it's not, because that'd be a kind of a rude mistake to make. But yeah, give it a little bit of time, gauge how long it's been since you noticed that status change, and then go from there. Let's see here. Let's see here. Next submission. Love the computer work here. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. Ooh, don't need that. Bum, bum. Oop. Dum. Don't you love it when you realize the host is not as prepared for the episode as he should be? Let's see here. All right. So this one is titled Tips for Responding to a Low Offer. I was just notified that I've been selected to receive an offer as a senior director, a non-technical job. I'm super excited about this job. I haven't received the offer yet. I think it's just taking a long time, and the recruiter was apologizing and telling me not to go anywhere. During my initial phone screen, a junior recruiter asked me about comp expectations. I said, ooh. And we had done that one. We had done that one, sir. Lord Almighty. Let's see here. Gotcha. Let's see here. All right. Ooh, that's a long one. How y'all doing? How's everyone doing? Go ahead and respond to any of those questions that are still in the chat sections. If you are joining the show this morning, I'm pulling up another of our submissions to discuss for today. And let's see here. All right. So the next one's called spent the last 2 years being self-employed, and now it's hurting me in a background check. Relatable. All right. So I'm looking for some advice, and please don't rip me apart too hard as I'm really stressed. Gotcha. All right. I have a 12-month contract offer at a large investment company, and I desperately need this job. I put down self-employed for some of 2020 and all of 2021. When in reality, I was working under the table for my in-laws. I was barely working, still figuring some stuff out, didn't learn a lot, and worked very inconsistently. Fast forward to today, and I'm supposed to start this new job on the 24th. I'm really excited for it. This is really going to turn my life around. I get an email today asking for either 1099s or Schedule Cs in order to verify my employment. For 2020, I filed taxes but did not include the $900 I made working for my in-laws, and in 2021, I probably made under $20K. Never filed taxes for 2021. What are my options here? How do I make this right? I think I'm going to have to file a modification to my 2020 taxes with a Schedule C and then pay the amount owed. And I'm thinking about filing taxes for 2021 now, but I'm not sure what they are looking for in my background check. Could I get away with just filling out a Schedule C? I'm thinking they are able to cross-reference with the IRS database. I don't mind filing my taxes. Really not trying to avoid them. I'm just coming from a desperation here, and I don't know the way forward. I'm pretty sure there's always like a grace period if you miss certain taxes, like you just include them on the next year's income tax. So I'd say go for that if you can. Otherwise, I'd say it couldn't hurt going for the modification, and just doing what you are able to, just to make sure that that's all good to go. I would say, ultimately, if you're still working, you can always try to go with, still working with in-laws, and just saying that like what you were making was you were doing a lot of kind of freelance work, and so you wouldn't necessarily have those documents. Totally your call though. I would say if you can simply make up for the taxes that you didn't file, do it. That way you have those documents. And if not, just explain like you were doing freelance work, and therefore you simply don't have them. But also ask them about, try to gauge what they're looking for in proving your employment, right? Are they looking to see that you were actually active, or are they wanting to confirm that there was some company that facilitated whatever skills they're hoping that you have, right? Because ultimately, if you were still working, and I'm assuming applying to a job that has some relation to the skills that you were making use of between 2020 and 2021, then that really should be good enough. So that's my 2 thoughts on that. Let's see here. Next submission is company forgot to adjust compensation. I joined my current company around a year ago remotely in Texas, but my team is located in New York City. My starting compensation was for the NY area, and it was never adjusted to the Texas cost of living. If the company at some point found out that they forgot to do this, would it be possible or legal they take back the difference across the year so that my comp didn't match the norm for their area? Honestly, I don't think this is something they could legally do. It's not on them. It's not on you if they forgot to adjust the compensation for the different markets that you're working for. That's something they have to take responsibility for. Now, of course, if they realize it, that they forgot to make that adjustment, they would have to bring it to your attention that, hey, you are going to be seeing this kind of downshift in your compensation. And, that would put you in a position to decide, do you want to stay with them or leave? So gauge whether or not the company that you're working for is one that you want to stay with. And also hopefully the shift in compensation wouldn't be horrendously different. Because we wouldn't want you to be kind of forced into another position for necessity. But again, no, it's not on you if they forgot to do that. They shouldn't be able to take back the money they paid you. Your contract was at the time still what it was, so you were paid for what you were contracted to do. Again, if they want to change your compensation, they do have to bring it up to you, and you figure it out from there. But otherwise, I'd say you're in the clear. They're not going to try to take it back. No. Okay. Let's see. Let's see here. This one sounds like it's coming from an actual recruiter. Okay, so how to decrease the no-show rate of first interviews. Let's delve in. I'm a manager for a small medical office. I find that I could schedule 10 interviews for a given day, and only about 2 to 3 people would actually show up. Is this normal, or is there some room for improvement? So that's a big number, I would say, for people to not show up. There's got to be something. Before reading the rest of it, I'm going to assume that there's either information lacking or benefits maybe not being there, or or just ultimately if it's not a big office like you said, then there might just be plenty of competition out there that are drawing people more easily. But let's delve in further. The two positions I am looking to fill are front desk receptionist and a medical assistant. I post the job openings on Indeed and then call and text each candidate that I am interested in. I realized that people don't really read the job descriptions, so I would often waste time with pointless interviews. To mediate this, I started doing weird wording there. To mediate this, I started doing during the first call, I asked them a couple of questions. Okay. The first question, are you okay with the posted salary range? Okay. Are you okay with commuting to our location? Do you speak Spanish and able to translate to and from? Are you okay with the times they are open? Firstly, I want to applaud this person on making the salary range like one of the first points they want to clarify, because let's be honest, a lot of companies out there will make you go through several different unnecessary interviews before actually dropping the expected compensation rate, which honestly should be one of the first things you discuss. And if it's the recruiter or the interviewer that doesn't bring it up, you should bring it up, because let's be honest, if you have great conversations with the team, but ultimately the compensation offered is just way lower than what you need it to be able to do this job, but also live your life, then that's going to probably be a deal breaker, right? And ultimately you've wasted a lot of time. So I love that compensation, the salary, is one of the first notes of discussion for this person. All right, so let's see. So compensation, commute, speaking Spanish, and the office times. I also tell them briefly about the clinic and the daily duties, after which I give the applicant the opportunity to ask any questions they might have. If they answered yes to all of the above questions, I ask if they would be interested in coming in for an interview. Interview would be scheduled. More than half of the scheduled interviews don't show up. Does anyone have any tips on what could be done or asked to make sure the candidate does not schedule the interview if they are not interested? So one thing I say about that is that, firstly, for me, I'm not going to agree to an interview if I'm not genuinely interested. And I would suggest that you don't agree to an interview if you are not genuinely interested. Now, I think most of my assumptions earlier have been kind of dashed here. It seems like there is a posted salary range, so you have a view of that. They're listing the operation times and the location for the commute. And again, otherwise it looks like they are asking additional questions just to see if this person would actually be interested in the job enough to have an interview. I would say to this, I don't think it hurts to reach out to people who don't show up. If you haven't done that, like reach back out via text or call or email if you haven't, and gauge if they are still interested, and see if they'll even give you feedback as to why. I think being able to provide feedback is good for both fronts. Obviously I'm a big proponent of, if you've been passed over for a job, but you've had great conversations with the hiring team, they should be able to provide you feedback as to why. And sometimes in cases like this, where the recruiter or the employer needs feedback, sometimes perhaps they don't post very often on platforms like Indeed or LinkedIn. And so maybe there was some kind of bit of information not included that they forgot that may have disillusioned somebody to the job, and they decided to not come to the interview. Granted, if you're not going to make it to an interview, you should still tell someone that you're not going to make it for an interview. And again, don't agree to one if you're not genuinely interested, because let's be respectful of everybody's time. It's only really fair, right? So I would say that, reach out to them who didn't show up, see if you can connect with them again, see if they, and always go the route of, hey, did something happen? Did something unexpected occur that caused you to not be able to make it? And, try to connect with them that way, not assuming that they just blew you off, and then see if you could gauge some kind of feedback that, again, caused them to end up disinterested in the position, and go from there. I'm going to call it for today's episode. Thank you so much for joining me on Casual Babble. I really really appreciate all of you hopping in and joining us this morning for Friday. I hope you have a great weekend, and we will see you again, depending on the holiday. May not be this coming Monday, but definitely next Wednesday on the 12th. See you then, 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. Eastern Time. Hope you have a great day.